And so once again, we say welcome. This is APH's Access Academy. Today is session 6 of our Braille 2000 series, textbook transcription from start to finish. Today is all about you. It is all about the questions that you have that's going to drive our direction today of discussion. We are welcoming back Rosemary Baggott back to our discussion today, and also joining her to facilitate our chat this afternoon for the next 90 minutes is Nicole Gaines, Director of Resource Services at NIMAC, as well as Elizabeth Schaller, our NIMAC manager here at APH. Welcome to the conversation, ladies.
Thank you. Okay, so where we're going to start today, again, I'm Nicole Gaines, and I am the NIMAC project director. And what I'm going to be doing, first of all, before Rosemary gets into a lot of the nitty-gritty regarding Braille 2000, is that Liz and I are going to kind of talk about a few things that were more specifically related to some online resources that we referred to in earlier sessions, and also to give some examples of some NIMAS related questions that had come up. So with that, I am actually going to share my screen with you guys so that I can show you a few things before I hand it off to Rosemary. So what you should be seeing now is the LUI database landing page. And this was a resource that we mentioned in terms of locating accessible instructional materials. And the LUI database has been a free service of the American Printing House for the Blind for almost 20 years now, but I'm very excited to announce that just today we have launched a new redesigned site. So if you have used LUI in the past and you're looking at this page and you're saying, that doesn't look like anything I've ever seen before, you're right, because this is new and brand new. And so I just wanted to let folks know again, the URL for that is LUIS, .aph.org. This is how you can find this. And this is a resource that includes materials in accessible formats that are available from about 80 different organizations. And you can, we usually say, do an ISBN search. That's usually your best search, but there are a wide range of search options that you have here. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail about this, other than to point out that one of the things that you can do in the course of searching LUI is you can also find LUI. You can also find NIMAC, Learning Ally, and Bookshare materials here, and you can filter by those. So it's just kind of another way. I think we talked about searching the NIMAC before, just in passing, but you can also find the NIMAC materials in LUI. This is just a great place to go if you're looking to find out what has already been produced. And LUI also has information about materials that are in production. So if you are a Braille producer and you make materials available and you're not listing your materials in LUI, we encourage you to do that. And if you are interested in trainings that are coming up, there's actually a demo that's going to happen at 3 o'clock today after this session. So if you're interested in that, Liz is going to put the URL in the chat. You don't have to register. You can just show up for that. But if you're interested in being on our list for future trainings, give us a ping at nimac@aph.org. We'll relay that over to the LUI folks. Make sure that they get you on the list to know about future trainings. So that is LUI. The other thing that I wanted to kind of talk about as a resource, we talked about NIMAS in the adoption contract or purchase agreement. This is a really, really important piece in terms of ensuring that the materials that your students need are in the NIMAC when you need to produce Braille or another accessible format. So I wanted to just point out and again kind of give a shout out to the National AIM Center at CAST. Their website address is aem.cast.org, and you can find links there to a range of different resources for states and districts, including sample purchase order and contract language. So you can literally copy and paste this language from this website into your documents to ensure that you are requiring NIMAS when you purchase new materials. So just encourage you to take a look at this. And if you have any questions about it, we would be more than happy to help you get connected to the TA folks at the National AIMS Center if you would like any further assistance with that. So the next thing in terms of online resources is I just wanted to also point you to the NIMAC website. And if you are an accessible media producer, you can, we actually have a page of resources for accessible media producers. This also, again, includes information on how to register. If you want to register, we're happy to send you a link. Just email us, again, nimac@aph.org. We're happy to get you registered. And this is where you can also find other archive trainings and resources for you. So again, that's nimac.us, and that is our informational website. So those are some resources that I wanted to kind of delve into. And then the other thing I wanted to circle back around to, because it seemed like there were a couple questions about alt text, a couple questions about MathML. So I wanted to just talk a little bit more in detail about that. And especially, I'm going to start with the alt text question in terms of where you will see that, if that is present in the file. And also just kind of circling back, you know, Rosemary was talking when we covered that topic, she was talking about how that alt text, it may be what you want, it may not be what you want. And so just to kind of have a heads up that you may want to review that, you may want to edit that. So I actually have an example here of a file. This is an actual XML file. And, you know, I kind of did the little thing before where I did a Control F and ALT, depending on where you, what kind of program you open up the XML in, you should be able to do a search and just find various things. And so that's basically what I have done here. I have this particular file open in Notepad++. That's a really good free program that you can use if you want to just view the XML directly. And so one of the images that we see here, the alt text says, a cat is peeking through a hole in the fence. So that's the alt text. And then if we actually go to the actual NIMAS file set, to the images folder, we can actually see the picture, and there is the cat. And so you may decide, is that cat peeking through the fence, or is that cat doing something else? So just kind of a case in point is that I think that depending on the format that you're producing, the alt text might be super useful for you, but it may or may, you know, it may not be. It just kind of, it's going to depend on the particular accessible format, and also, again, sometimes if a conversion vendor has provided alt text, they may not have the complete context, the learning context of the image. So there may sometimes need to be tweaks for that as well. So that's just a little basic information about alt text. Again, it is optional for NIMAS. If customers require it, when they're asking for NIMAS, we will get it. Otherwise, we generally do not get it. And another thing about that is what we do try to take a cursory look through and make sure that alt text is good quality. If you ever run across a file and the alt text does not look good, if it doesn't seem grammatical, please let us know, because we're not able to catch all issues like that. There's not really an automated process that can find those types of issues. So we do our best, but if you ever have an issue with the file, do let us know. We appreciate getting that feedback. So the other thing that I was going to talk about is I was just going to circle back around again to the question of MathML. And if I can get this thing to, here we go. I'm going to close that window. So I talked earlier in the session where we talked about MathML about if you have your XML file open and you do a search for, you know, MATHML, you're going to see a bunch of information at the very top of your XML file. And if you see that, if you see multiple references to MathML, that shows that you have MathML in that file. Another thing that you can do, if you're feeling really techy, is you can actually type in M:math, that is going to be the opening tag for any math expression that is in the file. So again, if you see M:math tags in that XML, that's going to indicate to you that those are the MathML expressions. So we talked also in terms of the NIMAS and the requirements of the NIMAS file with regard to images. And what we had talked about is that historically speaking, math equations have been provided in print books and in NIMAS files as images. And so I just wanted to show a quick example of that. Basically, oops, my little folder. Did my little folder go away? It did, but I can get back to it. So basically what I have here is I'm just going to kind of show you a file that, so this is a NIMAS file. It includes MathML, but even if you download the file with MathML, the fallback images or the actual images for the equation are still going to be there in the file set in case you need them. And so just as an example, you know, if we kind of scroll through, we open one of the image subfolders from the NIMAS file. Generally, the way that the images are organized is that you will have a subfolder for each chapter of the book. That's just how things are usually structured. And so if we kind of go through, you know, and you'll also see that there are other images that are just pictures from the book. They might not necessarily all be math equations, but just kind of picking one math equation. This is an example here of an equation that is provided as an image. This is the actual image. And in this particular case, we actually have that expression coded into the XML using MathML, which means that it can automatically be translated into NIMAC or UEB math by Braille Blaster, for example. So again, when you are downloading the file, if you don't want the MathML, you can choose the no MathML download, and those images that I just showed you, those will automatically be kind of shifted. This is kind of something that happens at the level of the XML tags, but basically there's a transformation that happens that strips out the MathML and then just puts those images back in so that the file that you see, it's as if there never was MathML present in there. And again, that's just if you have software that cannot use the MathML at all and you don't want it in there, that is the option that you have. So before I move forward to the last thing I want to talk about, are there any questions about any of the things I've shared so far? Okay, well, the last thing that I just wanted to mention is I wanted to just talk a little bit again about if you are registered as an accessible media producer, and again, if you work with NIMAS files, an accessible media producer account is just a way, it's a convenience really for you to be able to be assigned files from the authorized user that you're providing the Braille book on behalf of, whatever state you're working for. So it's really just there to make that workflow easier for you. And one advantage of having that as well is I just want to talk about a service that we offer as the NIMAC, which is that if there is an ISBN that you need to produce in Braille and it is not found in the NIMAC, you can add that to your watch list in your account and we will research that for you. And if it's within scope for the NIMAC, we will make a request to the publisher, try to see if we can get a file expedited for you. And if it's not within scope, we will let you know and see if there are any other accessibility alternatives or digital file options that might be available to you. So just another advantage in terms of if you're working with NIMAS, you can register for a free account. And the watch list is just kind of a bonus in terms of something that could be really advantageous for you in your work. So that's pretty much what I wanted to share in terms of the NIMAC side of things, the NIMAS side of things. And so with that, thank you very much. And I will hand it back off to Rosemary.
Hey, Nicole, this is Liz. Before Rosemary takes over, we did have a question in the chat, and I was just wondering if you have any thoughts on this too. I provided a couple of ideas for this person. She was saying that they have just adopted some new materials in Florida, and she's wondering what thoughts we might have for kind of on the fly quick math transcription. So I sent the Braille link to Braille Blaster and also the link to APH's quick Braille conversion that they offer. Do you have anything else that you would want to add to that?
So just in terms of
just any tools or ideas for, I think she's anticipating that she'll have to do some pretty quick turnaround Braille transcription. So yeah.
Well, the first thing I would say is that hopefully they did ask for MathML in the NIMAS files, because that will make things just much faster if that automated translation using Braille Blaster is a possibility. And that actually, what you mentioned, that isn't something that I specifically pointed out in terms of the APH Quick Braille, but APH does have a service if you are an ex officio trustee, if you are, or actually if you are, it's a little bit complicated, but if you're an ex officio trustee of APH, or if you are an authorized user of the NIMAC, you can actually request that APH do a quick turnaround conversion using Braille Blaster. The reality is, if you're a trained transcriber and you already know how to use Braille Blaster, you can probably generate that file just as quickly on your own, but it is a service that's available for folks who, maybe if you're not a transcriber, but you need a BRF file it's not a perfect textbook, it's not a complete textbook, but it might be a good interim solution for a student who's waiting for an embossed Braille book, for example. That is something that we can provide you more information about. So, yeah. But I think that probably overall Braille Blaster is going to be your best option there. Braille Blaster and the Braille 2000 together. Thanks.
Thanks, Nicole.
Are we ready to transition?
I think we are. Take it away, Rosemary.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks.
I just saw one little question come in, and you may have a better answer for this about, I think it said if you're using Braille Blaster, you have to save it as a different kind of file. And I would say that as a transcriber, I found Braille Blaster files come in as a BBX, which is, I think, only usable in Braille Blaster, but there's an option right there to save as BRF, which is what I do into my Braille 2000 program. And then from there, I save it as a B2K because that's the file type that Braille 2000 uses, or whatever else.
Yeah, and just to chime in on that, that's exactly right. The BBX file, that's kind of, if somebody wants to save it and then reopen it and continue to work with it in Braille Blaster, that's going to be the best format to save it as. But if you want to take that file and open it in Braille 2000 or other software that can open BRF, then you do have the option to save it as a BRF. I do think that the default is probably BBX, because there's this, I think the software assumes that you're closing this file now, but you're going to come back to it later. And I'm not 100% sure about this, but I'm not sure that if you save it as BRF, that Braille Blaster can reopen it. It might be able to, but I think at one point in the past, Braille Blaster could not open BRF. So the BBX is kind of the working document file format.
Thank you, Nicole. So I'm going to go ahead and just share. I created these slides just to keep myself on track today. So Nicole is already, now I have to pull it up on my screen. There we go. Nicole has already done the Louis, the NIMAC information. We just quickly cover some of the questions and answers that came in about, the questions that came in about transcription and Braille 2000. Images, one was images in NIMAS. How do you use them to make tactile graphics? Nicole just showed the image file. I sometimes do some of my tactile graphics. Mostly I farm them out to someone who enjoys doing graphics and does an excellent job. I'm most familiar right now with CorelDRAW. There are other programs usable, but basically we just take the image in the NIMAS file and copy it. And I did this recently with some. Go to that image. I'm sorry, yeah, in the image file of the NIMAS translation. copy it and paste it onto my tablet graphics page and can use it from there to trace or whatever. That's the simple answer. I don't know if there's anything more in depth that someone was looking for or that any other transcribers have out there, but that's basically how I use them. If it's easy, sometimes you just go in freehand or using the tools within the graphics program, but they will be your reference. The print textbook is your reference. Proofreading, someone was interested in the summary of my process. I usually proofread as I go. The NIMAS files make that a whole lot easier than it was in the past, but I am pretty much scanning line by line using the using this, this in the Braille 2000. As I'm going, I'm seeing the print underneath. I use that screen view. That helps, but I'm going proofreading as I go. I do it again. Once I finish the volume, I'll go back in detail. I usually do that as I'm adding my graphics, doing very much in detail. Then I'll do a quick overview afterwards, once the volume's complete, for formatting and details. If I'm doing something where I'm directly entering math in a math or science text, I may do those several times. I'll enter, then I'll go back and I'll look at those carefully, especially if it's upper level math. Then I'll do that again as I go back. So that's a quick overview. I did not mean to have the word demo on that slide. So it's more on this one. Another question, how do I estimate the sizes of Braille volumes? We kind of discussed this a little bit in day 3. I do it. The question, do you have to finish volume 1 before working on volume 2? That's the way I do it. I have my full NIMAS file, or if it's too large, I'll break it down into a smaller section. Again, we discussed that on one of the first 2 sessions. And I do just a running transcription. When I get to the end of the volume, I'm guesstimating based on how many pages are typically acceptable, and that's often an agency decision. I know there was a standard for years of 180 Braille pages per volume. Some of the agencies I'm working with, they prefer for smaller files, just easier to bind them. So I check with the agency on that. Then you divide between sections, logical sections. If you can put a whole chapter in a volume and break it up by chapters or units, great. Otherwise, we always divide at a section within the volume. I try to keep the page count relatively consistent across volumes with any given work. But at the end of the day, it's just like trial and error. I took a lot more time with this in my early years transcribing. Over the years, I've kind of gotten a better feel for, okay, this is a good place to break this volume. It's a little more challenging if I have answers at the back, say of a technical work, math or science, where there's a whole separate answer file at the back of the print book. I have to guesstimate my number of Braille pages for the volume, leave it smaller, because then I'm going to go and add in a section from the back. And if there are graphics involved, that's more problematic. So it's not a real clear cut and dried answer. It's back and forth working with the files, getting a feel for, how many pages what thing is going to take. So yeah, trial and error. I move through the file, save and edit as I go. When I get to the end of a volume in that multiple file, if it's my large NIMAS file, I'll save and then save as the new volume. It's kind of a process. I think we did that in detail in day 3. So Nicole or Liz, I would say if at any point in here as I'm moving through, there's a question that comes in on one of these, just feel free to interrupt. But I'm going to go ahead to book covers and jackets. Someone wanted to know how to, what to include when transcribing the back cover, maybe show some other examples and talk through the reasoning. Most of the books very few books that I transcribed actually have material on the back cover, so I don't have other examples currently. But I'll take a quick look at formats. This is really most helpful tool. It should be open on that. Yeah, maybe not. Drag this over here. I don't know why we're slow today. There it is. This is an interesting feature. How did that end up there? All right, I'm in the Formats Manual online from the BANA website, and Section 2, Transcriber Generated Pages and Front Matter. We looked at this briefly the other day, just looking at the information on book covers and jackets in 2.8. This is what I look at. How do I know if I have information on the back cover of a book? I look at this just to be sure. And the question may have come in after I covered this the other day, but it's, it bears repeating. This lets me know that I'm going to put it on page P1, which would be after the transcriber pages at the beginning. Include book jacket or inside cover information not included within the text. So that would be my reasoning, is look at the information on the jacket, see, is it in the text? If there's a list of authors' works, author's biography on the back jacket, that cover, if it's already in the text, I would not include it in the cover material. If it's not, then I do. Do not include advertising material, reviews by other authors, etc. That's the only information given there, so I think it's pretty self-explanatory. I think this section on dedications and acknowledgement is similar. We didn't cover this, but if there are dedications or acknowledgements in the book, typically they're in the front of the book, but sometimes they're in the back. Each one begins on a new Braille page. It gives your basic formatting guidelines. And this particular page doesn't say exactly where. I know it's in here somewhere. But because they don't happen a lot, well, it's in the P pages, okay? Because they don't happen a lot, it's not something that I have internalized to automatically remember, so I go to formats every time, and that's your simple solution there. So in order for me to advance this, I have to pull it up on my laptop over here. Running heads. I did go over how to remove running heads, but we can look at that again. It was kind of in passing with other material. I'm going to do a demo here to include the running heads and also speed Braille keys. There were a lot of questions about speed Braille keys. We'll take a look again at how to view those, what the process is in the in Braille 2000, and then I'll just go through briefly through a file that I'm going to see what I do here. Yeah, run a sample transcription and show you my process for several of these things. So with that in mind, I have this file, which is a part of a NIMAS file. It doesn't include my preliminary pages, so let's just say for right now, well, no, I'll try to go into print view for some of it. I work most quickly and automatically in the Braille view, but I'm going to just advance this to the next page. I'm doing Alt-D for do, and then C for changing to the next, moving to the next page. Let's just imagine that I have my transcriber generated pages up here already, and my preliminary pages, table of contents. I'm looking right here at this, and this bothers me. Somehow that .3 got entered before, so it's being moved around. So I'm going to generate a running head right here. When you open Braille 2000, there are no running heads in a new file, so I'm just going to call this Alt-R for running head. I'm going to call this sample book and hit OK. And there's the running head generated. So that's in there. It's automatically in for every page. I'm scrolling down. It's in for every page in the file. I can do the same thing with the print view. It's the sample book at the top. If there's a certain page where I don't want that, I don't know why that's not centered. That's weird. So something to do with the print view. I'm not used to. So let's say this was the first page of my print text. And in the first page of the print text, you do not want to have the running head. First of all, this little yellow triangle here is an annotation mark in Braille 2000. It includes, this particular one is including annotations for the running head. Wait a minute, that may not be visible because it's at the bottom of my screen. Here. Okay, so the yellow dot says it's for running head, page numbering, and page break. I didn't actually put any page numbers in yet, but there was the page break. So I can right click on that and see what I could remove a running head, and that will remove it, I believe, from the whole book. So generally, if a transcription, if you're asked to do it without a running head, you're not going to need to worry about it. It won't come in with one. But let's say I do have a running head. I'll go back and put this in here again. And I want to remove it from the first page of the text. You get into the beginning of your book transcription. You don't want to have the running head on the very first page because format says to put the full title of the book on that page. So I go to the page above. Over here while we were there. And I'm going to, it won't work because I'm in the gray area, so I'm going up here, trying to keep it toward the top of the screen for you. I'm going to advance to the next page. And under the page control dialog box, you see the option to hide the running head when I do that. And then I'll select OK. Takes me to the next page. There's no running head on that page. I would go back and I would want the full book title here. Braille 2000 did something where as soon as I started to Braille, it took me back up there. That's a control in there that there's probably a way to avoid, but I just do it by whatever I just did, the delete and the same process again. So here's my page view, full book title on the top line. Go down to the next pages, they will have the running head. Right now it shows it off center. That's only the print view for some reason. When I put it in the Braille view, it's centered. That's the basic running head process. Now I'm going to go into this and edit it a bit. So I'm looking at my print copy, which what I'll do, I'll put this on print view, but I'm going to put it back into Braille view when I need to edit something because that's how I move quickly. This has already been formatted quite a bit in the NIMAS file. Now I would look at this and I would say, yes, I do want this here. However, in the print, the title, end of topic review, that title is on the page. This is a box available online. This is kind of a sidebar that comes in periodically throughout this text. So I'm going to move this sidebar up above here because that's where it is in print. It's where it makes sense before we give you the directions for the exercise section. So I'm going back to Braille view. And I could do this any number of ways. The first thing I think I'd do is move these directions down below. So I'm going to copy them. Control X to save it. Go down here and paste it in here. I'll come back to that. This information is within a box. Now I don't have the speed Braille keys. I don't have a speed Braille key in this file for an opening box line. So I'm going to show the setup for a speed Braille key. That's under View. I'm going to come down, select Speed Braille keys. This is going to show the speed Braille keys that I already have in my system. And I look through here and I do not have one for an opening box line. So I'm going to select New. I'm going to choose the key on my computer that I want to use. It explains what I can use. I can use chords, a whole bunch of options. I pretty much have selected to use individual keys. Entering a key or chord moves you to the next panel. So I'm going to enter the letter B. Went right to the next panel. Up at the top, define speed Braille keys. Tells me that I selected B. A description for your speed Braille key is optional, so you don't forget what it is. Enter some description below. So I'm going to call this top box line. I'm going to click Next. You're now ready to record the actions of your speed Braille key. After you click Next, the recording indicator in the extreme top left up here will blink. It will continue blinking until you stop recording. This is where I got into, I would make mistakes in the past because I would not realize I would enter whatever, do whatever I wanted to do, and then I'd start typing somewhere. And the minute I did that, I had to start the whole process over again. So to stop recording, press the pause break key or mouse click the blinking recording indicator in the extreme upper left. That's what I will do to stop it. Right now I'm going to click Next. And I see the recording. This was problematic for me because it took me a while to remember to look up there in the top left corner. This is where it's blinking. As long as that's blinking, anything I type on my keyboard is going to be giving Braille 2000 a command to set a keyboard. A speed Braille key. So what I want to do here is a box line. There are two things that I've used in Braille 2000 for speed Braille keys. One is under Style, and I'll show that one next. But right now I'm going to go for box lines. I want to go to Insert. I just had it and I lost it. Here we go. I'm going to click on Insert in the left toolbar. Go down and find Boxing Line. Now, I don't know if you can see this, and I don't have a way to make this further up the screen that I know of, but there's a drop-down menu to the left of Boxing Line. I can select Bottom, Exterior, Thin, or Top. I want the top boxing line. Click there. Now, if you notice in my file, it automatically generated one, but I'm still not finished. I need to go up here and stop. That's a sample of what I just told it to do. Click on the recording blinking thing. And now it's going to ask me, do I want that for the current file only or for the system? I'm going to say this system because I've found this to be helpful. Now, I may do some others today that I'm not going to enter in system because I haven't figured out quite how they work. But this one I've used enough that I know it works. So this will now mean that for any file that I use within Braille 2000 in the whole system on my computer, the letter B, entering the letter B in Braille mode will create a top boxing line. Click System. I'm going to click Finish, and I'm now done. So this is my box. Now I can come down here and say I want to do it again. I'm just going to type the letter B, and there it is. Now notice that Braille 2000 automatically generates a blank line underneath. I'll have to click Delete to bring something up. So I'm going to go back up here. I'll do that. Let me fix for time. I'll do that one more time. I'm going to create the closing boxing line. So again, I come into View, Speed Braille keys. Notice up here that in my system, the letter B has been entered. The description is top box line, so that's now one of my Speed Braille keys. I'm going to do another new one. I'm going to just pick the letter X because I haven't used it for anything else. And bottom boxing line. I've entered. Click Next again. I'm now ready to record. Click on the recording thing. It's not record. It's not still flashing. I think it's because I'm doing something. So let's check it out. I'm going to go back to Insert, Boxing Line, and the drop-down menu. I'm going to make that a bottom boxing line, and it created it. So I don't know what happened to the icon, and I've never had that happen before. Makes me a little nervous. I think there was another key I could click to get out of that. Escape. So I'm not sure what that was about. I've literally never had that happen. Unless I already had that entered in there. Use speed Braille keys. Nope, it's not in there. So this is an example of I don't know what happened. I will try it throughout my system and see what works. It may just be that it entered, I know what it did. It entered a closing boxing line because I told it to, but I just typed in X again. So somehow that did not work. Let's go in here and delete this. I'm going to try that again. It's possible, very possible, I made a mistake. View, speed Braille keys. I don't have X in there. I click New. I enter X. I enter my description. Bottom boxing line. Click Next. Click Next again. There's my recording light. I'm going to tell it to insert. Boxing line. Bottom. I still see the flashing light on recording. I'm guessing that I did something before to stop that. There's my boxing line. I'm going to go up and click on the flashing recording word and tell it I want it in the current file only. And I'll show you why in a moment. I'm going to finish. Okay, now anytime I click the letter, type the letter X, it creates another closing boxing line. Here's what becomes problematic with me, and I'm sure there's a solution. I just haven't figured it out yet. So here's my bottom boxing line in the system. Let's say that I want to change the page after that. I'm going to, well, let's hit it. Usually it creates a blank line between the bottom boxing line and anything that comes after it. But within formats, there are guidelines about where to put blank lines. And if I have text at the beginning of the next page that needs a heading that's supposed to have a blank line above it, what you don't want is a page line indicator, that page change indicator that has a blank line above and below it. So this one actually worked. And I will play with that for a while and see what the commands are that I'm missing out on before I save it in my system. I'm going to delete those. That's a little on speed Braille keys. Let's just go up here. I'm now at a section that, going back within available online, this is in a print. These are identifiers that need to be entered. So I enter those 1 and 2. This is instructions for a set of exercises, so I want those to be in cell 5 runovers and 3. I've already created a speed Braille key for that, and for me it's the letter I. When I type I, it automatically moves that text to cell 5 runovers and 3. Part of this is bold typed, that's fine. That's in the print for emphasis. I'm going to come down and enter my identifier between that. This is a section I already did yesterday. This is NIMAS. This is NIMAS that happened to be all converted. This was a Braille Blaster to Braille 2000 conversion. I'm going to enter my opening NIMAS indicator. I'm going to enter my identifiers. Again, this seems to be in a lot of NIMAS files, the identifiers are not coming in. Here's number 9. I'll enter that for the next one. I'm seeing NIMAS is already, the conversion has already formatted it in a nested list format. Now this is split between pages, and in exercises you're going to have the whole problem on one page, so I'll just advance that to the next page. Same process. I'm not going to do this for all the exercises. I am proofreading these as I go. This was accurate NIMAC translation across the board because of the fractions. I put my closing NIMAC indicator. I can back up here because I just remembered I did not put it up here. And this is where I'll go back and proofread these, the math entries as I go, and then at the end, number 10, same thing. Opening NIMAC indicator. Now that moved it to the opening NIMAS indicator to cell 3, but this is, I've selected to put this at the end of the text above, so I just have to move it over. That just means I hit the wrong key. It's not. The end of the NIMAS. And I'm down at the bottom of the page, which is hard to see. So this is the process I'm going through here. Now, I'll also get to, now this one I say, okay, I don't like where this is. This needs to be in cell 3. It got moved, so I'm going to use my speed Braille key for that. I've used R, and that automatically moves it to cell 3. Runovers in 1, which I wouldn't want, but I don't need runovers here, so. I'm going to go down to just the 1. Now I get down to number 12. And edit as a fraction. For some reason, this is when the runovers are going to 1 and going to 3. Now here is, here's where I'm in a book that requires NIMAC, but these numbers came in from the NIMAS file through the Braille Blaster with the UEB with NIMAS translation, came in UEB. So here I'm going to have to change this 0.888 to NIMAS directly. Same here. And someone asked yesterday about, is there a way to click on, select that UEB and force a translation into NIMAC? And the answer right now is not yet. I know that that's one thing that Bob Stepp was working on for Braille 2000 version 3. So that's an example of where I had to edit some. And I know it's going to happen in 13 because some of these, moving this over, I would like to create a speed Braille key for 1 runovers in 5. I did do that the other day to try it, and let me show that right now. I'm going to set a bookmark for this place in my file so I can get back to there. I'm going to save it. I'll show what happens when I do that, because some of the times it works for me and some of the times it doesn't. So view speed Braille keys. Notice I now have the X in here, and that's just for this file. I'm going to create a new one. I'm just going to pick a letter I haven't used. I don't think I've used a V. And this is going to be 1 runovers in 5. That's my selection. I click next. I'm now ready to record. The recording light is blinking, so I'm going to go down here and tell it to do what I want. I'm going to style. There are several options in style for formatting: blocked, centered. I have a centered heading that I've created already. I have headings. I have a key for, I use the letter C for that. I use a certain key to create a cell 5 heading or a cell 7 heading. I can indent. I've created a speed Braille key for 3 runovers in 1, which is your basic format, 1 paragraph format. I have 5 runovers in 3, which is instructions, which I've used. I also have 7 runovers in 5, which is I used for transcribers note. However, it doesn't give me 1 to 5. So I found that the other day in nested list. Well, maybe I didn't. I don't see 1 to 5. Where was that? If I look through here, I'd probably find something. Uh-oh. I just did something, and I don't want to do it. So I'm going to go back up here. I did something for subhead. I don't know what that is, and I'm just going to cancel. So I thought I created something the other day with 1 and 5. Basically, you can go through and search in the style box and see what options are available, play around with it. What would you like it to do? What would you like to simplify to make your job faster, cleaner, easier? And work on creating a speed Braille key. If you don't find it when you're experimenting, or if, like me, you'd rather have a human index, I call Bob Step, free text support for users of Braille 2000, and he will tell me if it's there, it probably is, where to find it, and how to do it. So that's just some of my process. I'm going to go down here, and I'm going to leave that gray line for right now. I would get into 13 again, enter Alt-C, and enter takes me to the next Braille page, because I want this exercise to be all together on one page. Provide a rationale for grouping of the numbers. Now, this is where this should be in, so this is the first example. This is A. Notice that, now I want this all to be in NIMAC because it's a NIMAC transcription, but the plain numbers are coming in UEB. So I have to change that UEB 3, scroll down a little bit, UEB 3 to NIMAC 3 and comma. Delete those. The fraction is accurate NIMAC. This is UEB, except for the .2 comma, I need to make that a .5 in NIMAC. This needs to be -18 in NIMAC. So this is an example of one that was mixed. This 30 over, is that yeah, -30 over 3, I'm proofing it as I go, is an accurate NIMAC translation. I come down and I do my B for the next line, I do the same thing. Percents came in UEB. Fraction came in NIMAC. The numbers came in UEB, so I'm going to edit those. I have to go back and change my comma. So there is no completely clean NIMAC translation yet. It's incredibly complex. But as Nicole mentioned the other day, now this did come out nested 3 and 5. If you're working with these files and you see something that's not converting the way you'd like it to, contact them, and they're continually working on things. So I'm going to go on. I'm going to go to my next page. Well, I'm going to create a page term on here. Alt-D next for next print page. I could actually go up to the top of the file. Let me create a bookmark here. Go up to the top of the file because I didn't create the accurate print page number. So let's say in this print page, in this print book, the starting page number I'm doing right here is 550. Because I check these as I go. There have been times in the past where I've run into file missing a print page number, and this is asking if I want to correct all. I do. So I'm now going to go back to my bookmark, and this is now print page. Right away, I told it to correct everything. Be careful with that, because I put this page turn indicator in here, which was just to show you how that worked. Now I should be, and notice that it gave me a print page 552 after 550, and that's not accurate. So I'm going to use this little icon over here and say, yes, this is the annotation for print page numbers. I'm going to right click on it. Maybe I left click. I thought it was a right click. Get to right click, print page number. I'm going to remove 552. And now I'm going to try doing Alt-N for next, and it gave me 551, which is what I want. And then I go on from there. This is my lesson number. It is lesson number 1. That's centered automatically. There are 2 headings, one right after the other, that should be centered. So I'm going to delete this line. Notice this one is not centered. I use my speed Braille key C that I've created that centers that. This is another section here, so I'm going to leave this. And I'm finding right away this whole first section is not going to fit on this Braille page. So I'm going to move to the next page, Alt-D, C, and it takes me to the next page. They have the learning goals. I've formatted this a little differently in this book. There's always a box at the beginning of a section called key terms. And this is the last one I'll do, and then see if there's any questions. I'm going to select this boxed information and move it up there after the title because it's a sidebar. And I've decided to put that at the beginning of the section rather than in the middle of the learning goals and the following exercises. So this is a formatting decision I made at the beginning of the book as a transcriber. Control X, I've copied that. I move it up here, Control V. It's a sidebar. I have put it in a box, so I'm going to do my opening box line, B, and it worked. This got moved. Key terms, I've used it as a cell 5 heading. So I used my speed Braille key for cell 5. I come down here, and these I want in a list, so I'm going to move them to cell 1. I have a speed Braille key for 1, runovers in 3, so I just hit that here, change each one. They should not be bold typed. Sometimes the Braille Blaster conversion takes these out, sometimes it's not sure what, that there are items in a list, whatever, so it doesn't. So I could do these individually, just as a reminder of what I do edit as plain text. That was the wrong thing. Okay, thinking of something else. Adjust. If the one doesn't work, I go back to adjust emphasis. And I want to change the bold to plain. I'm not going to say everything, just in case there's something in there italicized that should be. I'm going to change the bold to plain and the highlighted text. That automatically takes away the bold. Down, try my speed Braille key for the closing box line, and it worked. The learning goals, it's a bulleted list. I have to insert my bullets. And again, I'm checking as I go to make sure that the page turn indicator was in the right place for these. Sometimes I'll have to have a long one like this. I'll think, is that one bullet or two? It's actually one. I go down to the next section and start there. So that's several things in there, including speed Braille keys, running heads, headings, and I'll see if there are any questions. It's just a sample of working through a file. Nicole or Liz, are there any questions come up that would be on that, or shall I just go ahead?
Let's see. Erin actually did just ask a question, and her question is, what made you determine to place your instructions in cell 1?
My instructions? My instructions are in cell 5 runovers and 3. Because I'm sorry, I may have misworded the way I was talking through. I have the print in front of me. Instructions,
okay.
Exercise, or because it's a NIMAC work, are in cell 5 runovers and 3. If it's an all UEB work, it's 5 and 5. So I may have misspoken back there about something.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, that was the only one.
Okay, good. Okay. 2000. Questions someone had, and Nicole mentioned the alt text earlier and how it does. I believe I've seen alt text come in describing some of the images in the file. That was when I was using a Braille Blaster conversion to Braille 2000. And anytime I've seen it come in, they've not been ones I've been able to use. Again, the one I saw about the cat, the one about the cat peeking through, that was, I thought, oh, that actually described the picture well. And then again, as Nicole said, you need to go back and look and see what is the text saying. Are they talking about cats hunting, for example? It could be relevant, but you always want to compare the text with your the alt text with the material around that and what the student's being asked, or if the print picture is even referenced. I've never used it. I always tend to create my own transcriber's notes if an image should be described. And so when I asked Bob Step this question yesterday, is there an option in Braille 2000 import to skip or omit alt text info when you're importing a NIMAS file? He said basically Braille 2000, and I always say this as far as I remember, he's does not have a setup to recognize alt text as it's coming in. So that would mean basically if you just go straight from the NIMAS file and open it in Braille 2000 as a source file, you should not have the alt text in there. Which for I think for most of our intents and purposes, at least when I'm doing a lot of the technical work, I don't need it. I've run into some alt text recently in the last few days working through this sample file I'm using. That was through Braille Blaster because it was NIMAC, and I wanted to see what they had there, but the alt text was not something I used, so I had to delete it. If you import directly into Braille 2000, it shouldn't be there. Speed Braille keys, someone asked this question the other day, and the speed Braille keys work in print mode? And I tried it then, and I said, looks like not. Well, I'm going to do a quick look at this because I spoke with Bob yesterday. He said, yes, as long as your keyboard is in typewriter mode. So I couldn't, if I'm using a speed Braille key, and it's one of my the six keys I would use for Braille transcription. Let's just do this. I tried it a little bit this morning. Control key switches the keyboard. Control K switches the keyboard momentarily to a 6-key entry for one input. And I did try this morning. Go back to the Braille file. Let's just say that right here, this example right here is part of a cell 5 heading. For some reason, the file did not recognize the word review, probably because it's in blue type with a little funny box, and it's also not spelled right. I entered it manually. Now I want that to be, I want to use my speed Braille key to move it to a cell 5 heading, but I'm going to try this in print view. If I enter my speed Braille key, which is an I, it doesn't work. It just types the letter I, but I'm going to do the Control K and then the letter I. That didn't show up earlier. Control K. I probably hit something else. Now the letter I, and it jumped it over. So yes, I'll go to this one. These are instructions. I want this in 3 run overs and 5. So again, I have to do Control K every time. It allows one entry, and then it will jump the speed Braille key for me. It will jump the heading. So that's an example of how that works. There's a lot more to it, but he explained it to me. I wrote it down in detail. I think if you want to do that, he'd be a good reference for that, because he'd be able to explain it quicker than I could right here, and more intelligently, since I'm just learning it. And back down to here. This question someone asked the other day, is Braille 2000 usable with a screen reader? And this was the information I got from Bob. He said, in his opinion, Braille 2000 is the best tool for use by the visually impaired. It's compatible with JAWS, but Braille 2000 has a talking edition that's self-voicing. That is, it also talks without JAWS. It actually reads the contracted Braille as natural speech. So I believe he said that in JAWS it won't recognize, for example, if you have a .5M, JAWS won't recognize that, but Braille 2000 will recognize it as mother and speak it as mother. Yes, you can work with Braille in the talking edition. It will say dot numbers as natural speech. There are other options. I'm going to take a quick look at this. And if you're a licensed user, or even if you do not yet have a Braille 2000 license, you can review this. I'm going to do this. I'm actually going to, for me to do it, I'm going to remove my key that I use to start Braille 2000. I'm going to exit out of it. Sure, I'll save it as it was. So I'm now out of Braille 2000. I'm going to open it again without my key, because it opens this dialog page. When I open it with the key, and if you're a licensed user, it will open it with them. Open Braille 2000 if you have this plugged in. A couple different options, so don't plug it in. I'm getting ready to plug it in. All right, this window comes up as I'm opening. And this I had never looked at till yesterday. There's an evaluate only, when you're launching Braille 2000, choose one of the following. If you choose the evaluate only, and you can do this even if you're not, it says you can evaluate Braille 2000 without having a license for it. The program will operate in demonstration mode in which the word demo will be added randomly to your output. So I'm going to come down and select the talking edition. It's happening on my other screen. So it's open again. I'm using version 2.275 because it's the one that I can use to download large NIMAS files with math in them. Click to continue. Demonstration license. Click to continue.
Starting Braille 2000, 2.275.
Are you hearing that, Liz? Liz?
Yeah, yes, yes,
Okay.
I did hear it.
I realized I should have clicked on start share, and I should have clicked on sound. So I guess in other words, you heard him speaking. You heard the Braille 2000 program speaking?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. I didn't remember clicking that. So close that. Now I'm going to see if it will open my file that I had opened before. And I'm just going to play with a few things that I discovered. So I'll go into print mode for the sake of
And Rosemary, while you're doing this, just to clarify, so this evaluation mode, this is available to anyone, regardless of if people on here are just thinking about maybe getting Braille 2000, they can actually go ahead in here and test a little bit.
yes.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it really is. And it does not like me to type as fast as I normally type. So I don't know if that's because I have things open. Or... Anyway, I'll just try that. Now I'm going to, on my left toolbar, the speech assist, I'm going to click on that and see what the options are. Speak location. Okay, so I selected speak location on the left toolbar.
Page ordinal 1 line 1 cell 12.
I'm using my control arrow to advance to the next
17,
word.
19, 25.
So that's speaking the location.
Line 3 cell 21. Line 4 cell 21.
Okay, other options on the left. I'm not sure what that. I see all these at once. All right, I right-clicked on it. These are the options. You can mute all, no Braille 2000 voicing. You can speak menu events, speak dialog box events, speak keyboard actions, tell about cursor location, speak info messages. Now, he did tell me that you can work with Braille in this, but again, I don't know all the settings, but you can play around with this. I'm just playing around with a little, well, let me go back over here again and pick one. Speak dialog box events. That'd be interesting. Oh, I can speak them all. Here we go on overkill. I have no idea what's going to happen.
Speak charts. Line 1 cell 18. Page 12. 15.
Oh,
14. 12. Right. Line 1 cell 15. 16. 17. Blank.
I might want to take out the location if I'm reading. So I'm just playing with it, and you are invited to play with this. And
Braille 2000.
I just closed it. So I'm open for any other questions that may have anything covered or anything that hasn't been covered. Anybody has any questions there?
I'm not seeing any about anything you demoed in the chat. There was one just now about the NIMAC. We're answering that, but yeah, I'm not seeing any for today. If anyone does have anything, please do go ahead and put that in the chat. And I will also go ahead and add in here in case there are folks who haven't yet who are interested in our our Duxbury training that's going to start next week. I'll go ahead and pop that registration link into the chat as well, and please share that with your friends. Thank you so much, Rosemary. I'm gonna have to check out that demo version.
Yeah, that was fascinating. I love the questions because I've learned so much just doing this from the questions people ask. And especially if it's something I think I'm not familiar with that, and I think, well, it probably does do that. Let me go up. So I'll just have one other thing that I did mention yesterday in case anyone missed that. If anyone who is interested in, if you're using Braille 2000 and you're interested in becoming a beta tester for version 3, then to contact Bob Stepp. And it's my understanding you can download that alongside your existing file that your existing version that you're working with.
I'm just keeping an eye on the chat. Mostly they're questions about, you know, different training things and such. I'm not seeing anything else about Braille 2000. But, you know, thank you so much for sharing your expertise over the past few weeks. And we're really happy that we're going to have these videos as a resource going forward too. I sent those out to everyone registered today, the first 4, and we'll be sure to send an email with all of the links when they're all posted. So yeah, there's some thank yous in the chat.
Well, we are delighted to just go out in a bang with all of this great information. And again, I echo what you had mentioned, Liz, that we are we're excited that we have all of this archived and that this will be moving forward so that any transcriber can come along and can access this, as well as when you are thinking about things that you have learned throughout each of these events, you can go back and dive back in and refresh your memory for that. So we are just thankful for all of that. And Rosemary, thank you for giving us your expertise and all of the experience. The demonstrations has just been great learning, and it'll carry things, it'll transcend way beyond where we are at even today with reaching so many more people. So we just really appreciate this.
You're welcome, and thank you, Amy. I have really enjoyed working with this team of people. It's been a great collaborative effort and a lot of fun in a sense.